Money doesn't hug your mother in a hospital bed, my father said, lifting his glass as if he were offering a blessing. My mother touched my brother's hand and whispered, "Some daughters visit after the crisis, not during it." So I laid the blue folder on the Thanksgiving table and said, "Then let's talk about who paid for that hospital bed and who lied about it." The sound of that folder hitting the oak table was small, barely more than a slap. But in my parents' dining room, with the candles trembling and the turkey still steaming beside the cranberry sauce, it landed like a gunshot. My name is Avery Lynn Caldwell. I was 34 years old that Thanksgiving, and I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, nearly 3 hours from the house where I grew up. I worked in post-discharge care coordination, which is a polished way of saying I spent my days making sure elderly patients and long-term recovery patients did not fall through the cracks after hospitals sent them home. I knew how to read insurance statements. I knew how to spot a crooked invoice. I knew the difference between a physical therapy copay, a home health billing code, and a medical transport charge that had been padded just enough to hope nobody noticed. I made a living catching the kinds of details most families were too tired or too scared to question. But in my own family, I had become the woman who sent money from Atlanta and called that love. My parents' house sat on a quiet street in Greenville, South Carolina. The kind of street where people still wave from porches and notice whose car stayed overnight. It was a 2-story wood frame home with white trim, a deep front porch, and family photos lined all the way up the staircase. From the outside, the Caldwells looked solid. Church on Sundays. Thanksgiving at the same table every year. Neighbors who said, "Good people," and meant it. Inside that house, truth had been getting remodeled for years. My father, Thomas Caldwell, was 67, a retired owner of a small home repair business. Dad believed in straight lines, clean lawns, firm handshakes, and family reputations. To him, love had a zip code. My brother Grant lived 12 minutes away, so Grant was loyal. I lived in Atlanta, so I was distant. It was that simple in his mind. And simple stories are dangerous when proud men refuse to revise them. My mother, Marjorie, was 68 and used to teach second grade. 3 years earlier, heart surgery had taken the color out of her cheeks and left fear sitting behind her eyes. A fall in the bathroom made recovery worse. She was not cruel, not in the loud way. Mom cried easily, softened every sharp edge, and chose the version of a story that hurt her least. So when Grant said he had carried her through the hard years, she believed him. It was easier than believing her son had learned how to profit from her weakness. Grant sat across from me that night in a navy sweater, his wife Heather beside him, their 2 children Mason and Lily squeezed between cousins at the smaller end of the table. He looked like every church bulletin's favorite son. Neat haircut, gentle smile, hands folded when Dad prayed. The kind of man who could post one photo of himself helping Mom into a clinic and collect 40 comments calling him a blessing. Heather barely looked at me. She kept smoothing her napkin over her lap, over and over, like she could iron guilt flat. The table was pure Southern Thanksgiving. Roasted turkey, mashed potatoes with gravy, green bean casserole, sweet potato casserole with toasted marshmallows, cornbread dressing, pecan pie waiting on the sideboard. Cinnamon candles burned too close to the centerpiece, mixing sweetness with the smell of butter and roasted meat. Aunt Carol had just asked if Atlanta traffic was still a punishment from the Lord, and everyone had laughed politely. Then Dad stood. He lifted his glass and began talking about gratitude, about family, about the people who showed up. His voice had that Sunday morning weight he used when he wanted a room to agree before he finished speaking. He looked at Grant first. Some people understand that family means showing up when it hurts. Grant lowered his eyes, as if humility itself had chosen to sit in his chair. Then Dad turned to me. Money doesn't hug your mother in a hospital bed. The room went quiet enough for me to hear Lily's fork touch her plate. I looked at Mom, waiting for her to stop him. She did not. Instead, she placed her hand over Grant's and said softly, "Some daughters visit after the crisis, not during it." And there it was, not shouted, not vulgar, worse, polished enough to pass for sorrow. For years, I had swallowed lines like that. I had told myself Mom was fragile, Dad was old-fashioned, Grant was closer. Maybe I should have driven more, called more, smiled more. Maybe if I explained one more time, they would finally understand. But 2 weeks before that dinner, a caregiver agency had sent a statement to my email by mistake. And numbers, unlike family, do not flatter liars. So I reached into my purse, pulled out the dark blue folder, and set it beside the gravy boat. Dad's face hardened. "Avery, this is not the time." I looked at him, then at my brother. "You made it the time, Dad." Grant's smile twitched. Heather stopped smoothing her napkin. Mom's fingers curled against the tablecloth. I opened the folder to the first page. At the top was a number printed in black ink. $129,700. I turned the page toward my father. "That," I said, "is what I paid, transferred, or covered for Mom's care over the last 3 years." No one reached for the turkey. No one asked for pie. Grant leaned back in his chair and gave a small laugh, the kind men use when they want fear to sound like patience. "Nobody said you never helped, Avery." I looked straight at him. "No, Grant. You said you carried this family while I mailed guilt money from Atlanta." The candle between us flickered. For the first time that night, my brother did not have a ready smile. Atlanta taught me to move fast without looking rushed. Most mornings, I drove through traffic with coffee cooling in the cup holder and messages from nurses, pharmacies, and tired adult children who did not know what Medicare covered. Nobody applauded when I caught a duplicate charge on an invoice. Nobody sent flowers when I got a home health nurse scheduled before a patient missed heart medication. But I liked the work because it made sense. A bill had a date. A prescription had instructions. A care plan either matched the doctor's order or it did not. People think care is soft. It is not. Care is calendars, hold music, insurance codes, and the refusal to let someone be forgotten. That was the language I knew. My father never learned to hear it. To Dad, love sounded like a truck pulling into the driveway. It looked like a son replacing a porch rail, standing beside Mom at church, carrying groceries through the kitchen. I lived nearly 3 hours away, in an apartment with a balcony barely big enough for one chair. I had no husband, no children, no Sunday potluck reputation in Greenville. Grant had Heather, Mason, Lily, a business name on his pickup, and a pew at First Baptist. He looked settled. I looked temporary. He used that difference like a blade wrapped in a joke. "Little sister," he would say, "one day you'll understand what it means to have people depending on you." I wanted to tell him strangers trusted me with oxygen deliveries, wound care schedules, and calls their own children were too overwhelmed to make. But I knew what he meant. I had no family of my own, so my work did not count. My money did not count. My fear did not count. In the Caldwell family, love had to be visible to be believed. After Mom's surgery, I called until my phone battery lived near death. I checked whether her beta blocker made her dizzy. I called the pharmacy when a refill was delayed. I arranged a shower chair, grab bars, non-slip mats, and a caregiver for the days when Dad pretended he could handle everything alone. Grant posted a picture of himself installing one of those grab bars. The caption said, "Taking care of the woman who took care of me." Mom commented with 3 heart emojis. I stared at that post in my Atlanta kitchen. The bar was on the wall. Mom was safer. I told myself that should have been enough. But small erasures become a second death when nobody corrects them. At Thanksgiving, Dad did not invent his accusation from nothing. He had built it for years, one proud silence at a time. Every time Grant got thanked for something I arranged, I stayed quiet. Every time Mom said, "Your brother has been so good to us," I said, "I'm glad he's there." I thought peace was worth the bruise. Then I learned some families do not use peace to heal. They use it to keep the wrong person quiet. So when my father raised his glass at Thanksgiving and turned gratitude into a weapon, he was not starting a fight. He was continuing one I had refused to name. And when I opened that folder, I was not trying to ruin dinner. I was trying to stop being buried alive under everyone else's version of my love. The call came at 11:42 on a Tuesday night. Dad's voice sounded smaller than I had ever heard it. Mom had come through heart surgery, but recovery was messy. A medication reaction, confusion, a near fall when she tried to stand too fast. Dad kept saying the nurses were talking in circles, which meant he was scared and too proud to say so. I packed in 15 minutes and drove from Atlanta to Greenville. By sunrise, I was beside Mom's hospital bed. "Oh, honey," she whispered. "You didn't have to come all this way." I kissed her forehead. "Yes, Mom, I did." For 2 days, I became the person I was at work. Only this time, the patient was my mother. I asked about her blood thinner, dizziness, incision care, low-sodium diet, and physical therapy. I wrote things down because Dad kept nodding without truly hearing. Before Mom was discharged, Nurse Diane Mercer helped her sign paperwork, naming me as a care coordination contact. It meant agencies, pharmacies, and service providers could speak with me about scheduling, recovery needs, and billing details. That one signature would matter later. When Mom came home, I paid for what could not wait. A shower chair, grab bars, non-slip mats, morning caregiver help, therapy copays. Medication insurance did not fully cover. Medical transport for days when Dad's truck was not safe. Grant helped too. I will not steal the truth from him just because he later stole it from me. He carried boxes, fixed the loose back step, and made Mom laugh when embarrassment sat heavy in the room. In the beginning, I was grateful he lived 12 minutes away. Then, about a month later, he called from his truck. "Little sister," he said, gentle as Sunday coffee. "Mom hates feeling like a burden. If bills keep coming straight from you, she'll start refusing help. Send the local stuff through me. I'll handle it." It sounded reasonable. It sounded kind. So I agreed. The first year, I paid about $64,900. Caregiver hours were heavy. Therapy was frequent. Dad was exhausted and too proud to admit it. The second year, Grant said recovery was slower than expected. He sent monthly lists for part-time care, rides, equipment repairs, and therapy. I covered about $39,700. The third year, he said Mom had setbacks. Not enough for another surgery, but enough to need support. I sent another $25,100. Altogether, $129,700 left my accounts because I believed my mother needed it. I still called. I still checked prescriptions. I still ordered low-sodium meals when the cardiologist tightened Mom's diet. I still asked if she felt dizzy after medication changes. But in Greenville, Grant was the one carrying groceries through the kitchen. He was the one in the photos. One afternoon, Mom thanked him on Facebook for making the bathroom safe. The picture showed Grant beside a grab bar I had paid to install. I almost commented, I'm glad it helped. And then I deleted it. Back then, I thought silence was grace. I did not understand that in my family, silence was vacant land, and Grant was already building on it. Grant had always known how to stand where the light was. When we were kids, Dad could watch him hold a flashlight under the hood of a pickup and call it character. If I brought home a spelling bee ribbon, Dad smiled and stuck it on the refrigerator. If Grant changed a lawnmower belt, Dad told the story at church. He's got hands, Dad used to say, like hands were proof of a soul. By 39, Grant looked like the son Thomas Caldwell wanted to show the world. A wife, 2 children, a home 12 minutes from mom and dad, a business logo on his truck, a handshake in the church parking lot. Caldwell Custom Renovation sounded stronger than it was. Grant knew when to bow his head. He knew when to say, "We're just doing what family does." He knew how to make duty look effortless. Heather helped keep the stage clean. She wore soft colors to church, packed snacks for Mason and Lily, and corrected them with a quiet, "Yes, ma'am." Heather was the kind of woman who could see smoke under a door and decide not to open it. I thought she looked away because family drama embarrassed her. Later, I learned she looked away because looking straight would have required choosing. Grant's business had started well enough. Kitchen updates, bathroom repairs, porch rebuilds after summer storms. In Greenville, a man with tools, a truck, and a church network could survive if his name stayed clean. Then the jobs got thinner. A builder delayed payment. A subcontractor demanded money Grant did not have. Materials cost more than his estimates. Credit cards filled the gaps. Then business taxes. Then another loan. The quiet panic of a man who had sold everyone a picture of himself and could not afford the frame. He never told Dad. Dad would have called it irresponsibility. Worse, disappointment. Grant could survive debt easier than he could survive becoming small in our father's eyes. So when my monthly transfers began passing through him, Grant found a door no honest man should have opened. At first, I believe he told himself it was temporary. $3,000 here to quiet a subcontractor, $1,200 there to keep a card from going past due. He would put it back. The next job would close. Nobody would be hurt. That is how theft dresses itself before church. Not as greed, as pressure, as timing, as just until Friday. But Friday kept coming. Grant still drove Mom to appointments now and then. He still fixed a loose step. That was what made the lie so durable. It was wrapped around just enough truth to fool people who wanted to be fooled. And Dad wanted to be fooled. Every Facebook post helped. Grant beside Mom's walker. Grant holding a pharmacy bag. Grant replacing the porch rail with a caption about honoring your parents while you still can. No one saw me on hold with insurance. No one saw the email confirmations. No one saw me checking whether Mom's new heart medication conflicted with a sleep aid. Grant did not need to erase me loudly. He only had to stand in front of what I had done and let people clap. By Thanksgiving, he had more than debt to protect. He had a crown. And men who wear crowns they did not earn are always terrified of the person holding the receipt. The email came at 7:18 on a Thursday evening. I was standing at my kitchen counter with a bowl of soup I had reheated twice and still had not eaten. My laptop was open beside me because work had followed me home, as it usually did. A hospital discharge plan in one tab, a pharmacy appeal in another. Then a new message appeared from Palmetto Home Care Services. Subject: Annual Care Summary for Marjorie Caldwell. For a moment, I only stared at it. Grant had been handling the local invoices for years, but my name was still on Mom's care coordination paperwork, so the agency must have copied me by mistake, or by old habit. I almost forwarded it to him without opening it. Then something in me said, "Read it." The first page looked normal. Dates, service categories, hourly summaries, notes about caregiver visits, and reduced support over time. Reduced support. I leaned closer. For most of the past several months, Mom had received between 11 and 13 hours of caregiver support a week. My spoon slid into the sink. Grant's latest monthly list had charged me for 38 hours a week. The month before that, 40. Before that, 36. I did not call him. That was the first smart thing I did. Instead, I called the agency the next morning from my office, with my voice calm and my notepad ready. I gave them my authorization details. I asked if the summary was complete. The woman on the phone, polite and tired, confirmed it was. Mrs. Caldwell's care hours decreased after her mobility improved, she said. There were no 40-hour weeks this year. No 40-hour weeks. I thanked her, ended the call, and sat there while the office around me kept moving. Phones rang, printers hummed, somebody laughed near the break room. My whole life continued as if a floor had not just opened under my feet. That afternoon, I pulled Grant's last 6 expense lists: caregiver support, physical therapy, transport, medication, safety equipment. The numbers did not stumble once. They marched. I called the physical therapy center next. I did not accuse anyone. Accusations make people defensive. Records make them useful. 2 sessions Grant had listed as paid were actually canceled. Another had been mostly covered by insurance. Then the pharmacy. A medication Grant said cost full price had been processed with a small copay. Another was never picked up on the date he claimed. By then, my hands had gone cold. Medical transport was worse. 3 rides Grant billed to me had no matching bookings. Not delayed, not rescheduled, not there. Still, I wanted a reason, a clean one, a messy spreadsheet, a confused receptionist, anything that would let me believe my brother had not turned Mom's recovery into a cash drawer. Then I reached the home safety installer. Grant had charged me $5,650 for bathroom modifications, stair support, and fall prevention updates. The actual invoice was $925. 1 shower chair, 2 grab bars, non-slip mats, labor included. The man on the phone even said, "Pretty standard job, ma'am. Nothing major." Nothing major. I looked at the old photo Grant had posted of himself beside Mom's bathroom doorway. 43 likes, 12 comments. Dad had written, "Proud of you, son." I did not cry then. Anger came too clean for tears. That night, I spread papers across my kitchen table. Grant's list on one side, verified records on the other. I used sticky notes because that was how my mind worked when panic tried to rush me. Yellow for paid, pink for inflated, blue for missing. By midnight, my table looked like a map of betrayal. The first crack in a family lie is never loud. It sounds like a number that refuses to match. And once one number refused, the others started speaking too. I did not sleep much that night. Around 3 a.m, I made coffee I barely touched and cleared my kitchen table. The apartment was silent except for the refrigerator humming and the scrape of paper against wood. There is a strange mercy in paperwork. It does not care who is charming. A date is a date. A transfer is a transfer. A lie either matches the record or it does not. I opened 3 folders on my laptop: year 1, year 2, year 3. Then I made smaller files for caregiver support, therapy, pharmacy, medical transport, home safety, and direct transfers to Grant. At work, I had trained myself never to trust a feeling until I could attach a file to it. Every bank transfer became a PDF. Every text from Grant became a screenshot. Every email where he wrote, Mom needs this by Friday went into a timeline. By sunrise, Friday no longer sounded like Mom's deadline. It sounded like his. During lunch, I pulled public records on Caldwell Custom Renovations. Grant's company had one civil claim from a subcontractor over unpaid labor. There was also a tax lien notice, small enough for him to hide, large enough to scare a man who lived on reputation. The dates lined up too neatly. A $4,800 transfer for extra care coverage landed 2 days before a filing deadline. A $2,150 payment for transport and medication gap came the same week a supplier demanded money. Another amount, listed as bathroom safety balance, was followed by a deposit into Grant's business account. I printed everything. Not because paper was necessary, but because my father trusted weight. If I came home with feelings, Dad would call them drama. If I came home with paper, he would have to look down while he did it. That afternoon, Grant texted me. "Little sister, can you send November early? Mom's care is running high again. Hate to ask." "What kind of care?" I typed. He answered 12 minutes later. "Same stuff. Extra hours. Some equipment repairs. Don't make me itemize every little thing. I'm drowning here." Before, I would have sent the money and hated myself for hesitating. That day, I wrote back, "Send invoices first." No answer came. By evening, Heather called. I let it go to voicemail. "Grant's under a lot right now. Your mom doesn't need more stress. Maybe just help him this once and you two can sort it out after the holiday." After the holiday. That was how the Caldwells buried things. After church. After Mom feels better. After Dad calms down. After Grant gets back on his feet. There was always an after. There was never a reckoning. I saved the voicemail. Then I drove to an office supply store and bought a dark blue folder, page dividers, and sticky tabs. Blue looked calm. I needed calm. By Thanksgiving morning, the folder was ready. The first page was the total, $129,700. Behind it were bank records, agency summaries, canceled appointments, pharmacy notes, transport confirmations, and expenses Grant could not explain. I did not drive to Greenville planning to start a war. I drove there, prepared to survive the one my family had already been fighting against me. Dad stared at the first page as if the ink had insulted him. The turkey sat carved in the center of the table. Gravy cooled in Mom's holiday dish. Heather kept her eyes on the folder. "Avery, put that away," Dad said. "No." The word was small, but it changed the room more than shouting would have. Grant leaned back, calm on purpose, as if patience could make him innocent. "This is Thanksgiving," Dad said. I looked at the glass he had used to toast my shame. "You already made it family business. You just thought I would be the only exhibit." Mom flinched. I turned the first page toward her. Dad wanted control. Grant wanted performance. Mom needed truth close enough to touch. "This is what I paid or transferred for your care," I said. "Not guesses. Records." Mom's eyes moved over the number. Grant gave a soft laugh. "Nobody said you never helped Avery." There it was. Minutes earlier, I was the daughter who mailed guilt money. Now suddenly, I had helped. "No, Grant. You said you carried this family while I mailed guilt money from Atlanta." Dad set his glass down. "Your brother was here. He drove your mother. He fixed things." "I know what Grant did," I said. "I'm asking why he charged me for what no one did." I opened to the caregiver statement. Palmetto Home Care reported 11 to 13 hours a week most of this year. Grant billed me for 36, 38, sometimes 40. Mom looked at Grant. That was the first real crack. Not in his face, in hers. Grant reached for the page. I kept one finger on the corner. It's a copy. His smile thinned. Agencies make mistakes. They do. That's why I called them. Heva's napkin twisted in her hands. I turned another tab. Physical therapy. 2 sessions you billed were canceled. One was mostly covered by insurance. Grant flushed. You're humiliating Mom. No, you used Mom to humiliate me for 3 years. I'm giving her the missing pages. Aunt Carol whispered. Good Lord. Dad's voice sharpened. Enough. But Mom did not say enough. She kept staring at the caregiver summary. Pharmacy charges, I said. Some were real, some were inflated. Medical transport had dates with no booking. Grant stood halfway, palms on the table. You have no idea what it takes to be the one nearby. I looked at him across the candles. Being near the house is not the same as taking care of it. The words sat there, clean and hard. Dad turned red, but he did not answer. Grant searched the table for rescue. His kids were quiet. Heather would not meet his eyes. Mom asked, Grant, why would the agency say that? He opened his mouth. For once, nothing useful came out. I closed the folder halfway, leaving the caregiver page visible. I had more, much more. But truth forced all at once can become noise. I'm not asking anyone to believe me because I'm hurt, I said. I'm asking you to read what was paid, what was provided, and what was invented. Dad's hand tightened around his napkin. You should be ashamed, he said. I nodded once. I was. For years. Then I checked the numbers. Grant's face changed then. Not guilt, calculation. And that frightened me more than anger ever could. Grant's silence lasted only a few seconds. Then he looked at me the way he used to when we were kids, and he knew Dad was already on his side. You know what this is really about? He said. You sitting in Atlanta, alone, judging the people who actually have families to take care of. The words moved through the room slowly, like smoke looking for lungs. Heather whispered, Grant, but she did not stop him. He pointed at the folder. You think a spreadsheet makes you a daughter? You don't have a husband waiting at home. You don't have children waking up sick at 2 a.m. You don't know what it means to be needed every single day. I felt Mom look at me, then look away. That hurt more than Grant's voice, because he was not inventing a wound. He was pressing one the family already knew was there. For years, every holiday had carried some quiet little question about my life. Was I seeing anyone? Was work still so demanding? Did I ever get lonely in that apartment? Lonely, as if loneliness made me less capable of love. Dad did not tell Grant to stop. He only stared down at his plate, jaw locked, letting my brother turn my private life into evidence. I could have said ugly things back. I knew where Grant's debts lived. I knew where Heva's silence hid. I knew how easy it would be to remind him that a wife and children did not make a man honest. But if I fought him on shame, he would win by dragging me into the mud he knew best. So I turned another page. This column, I said, keeping my voice steady, is what I verified. Caregiver hours, therapy, pharmacy, transport, equipment. About $61,300. I moved my finger to the second column. This is what remains unexplained. About $68,400. The number landed harder than the insult. Mom's lips parted. Grant, is that true? Grant did not look at her. He looked at me. You had no right digging through my life. I nodded once, almost sadly. You put your life inside Mom's bills. Aunt Carol made the sign of the cross, even though we were not Catholic. Mason stared at his plate. Lily leaned against Heather, confused by the sudden chill in a room full of warm food. Heather finally spoke, her voice thin. Avery, please. Think about what this is doing to the kids. I looked at her then. Really looked. Heather had known enough. Maybe not every number, maybe not every transfer, but enough to lower her eyes before I opened the folder. Enough to call me before the holiday and tell me not to make things harder for Grant. I am thinking about them, I said. That is why I'm not teaching them that lives become sacred when adults call them family. She blinked fast, and for once, she had no soft answer ready. If this story is hitting close to home, please leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. What would you tell Avery to do when family uses guilt to cover betrayal? Stay with this story because what Grant has hidden behind those bills is far worse than anyone at that table understands. Dad pushed his chair back. I will not have you destroy this family at my table. I closed the folder, but not all the way. No, Dad. You let a lie sit here for 3 years and called it family. I'm just refusing to pass it the gravy. Mom covered her mouth. Grant said my name, low and warning. Avery. I ignored him. I slid one copy packet across the table toward Mom. Not toward Dad, not toward Grant. Toward the woman whose illness had become everyone else's excuse. Mom, I said, I'm not asking you to choose me tonight. I'm asking you to read. Her hands trembled, but she touched the corner of the packet. That was enough. I stood, picked up my purse, and left the rest of the food cooling behind me. No one followed me to the porch. Through the dining room window, I saw Grant talking fast, hands moving, trying to rebuild the room before the truth learned how to stand. My rental car was cold when I got in. For a long minute, I sat in the driveway with the keys in my hand, looking at the house where I had once believed love could be quiet and still survive. Then I drove toward downtown Greenville, checked into a hotel under my own name, and locked the door behind me. The hotel room faced a parking garage and bare trees. It was not beautiful, but it was mine. No portraits, no candles, no table where Dad could turn a blessing into a verdict. I set the blue folder on the desk and watched my phone light up. Grant. Then Grant again. Then Dad. I let every call die. Grant called because speed might save him. Dad called because shame had worked on me before. If Grant could make me angry, he could call me unstable. If Dad could make me small, he could call me dramatic. At 10:36, Heather texted, "You don't understand what this will do to the kids." I pictured Mason staring at his plate, Lily leaning into her mother's side. I loved them. That was why her message made me cold. I typed back, "I understand what lying did to my mother." Heather did not answer. I slept badly. After 3, I almost called Mom. My thumb hovered over her name. Then I put the phone face down. If she was going to read, she needed silence more than begging. Morning came gray and thin. I was drinking coffee when an unknown Greenville number appeared. "Miss Caldwell, this is Diane Mercer." Diane had been Mom's recovery coordinator after surgery, calm and careful, the kind of nurse who made families believe there was a plan. "Is Mom all right?" I asked. "She's shaken," Diane said, "but she called me early this morning. She asked about some emails. She said you left her records." My throat tightened. She read them? She started. That word was mercy. Mom had not handed the packet to Grant, not yet. Diane chose her words with professional care. Your mother gave me permission to confirm what I can, and you were listed as a care coordination contact, so I can resend communications you were already part of. A minute later, the emails arrived. Medication questions, caregiver schedule changes, dizziness after a dosage adjustment, my request for low-sodium meals, a follow-up about shower safety, a message asking whether Dad had learned how to use the blood pressure cuff. Each email was ordinary. That was what broke me. No grand speeches, no daughter asking to be praised, just a woman trying to keep her mother safe from nearly 3 hours away. Diane stayed on the line while I opened them. Your mother may not remember who made the calls, honey, she said, but I do. I pressed my knuckles against my mouth. For 3 years, absence had been my crime. But I had not been absent. I had been present in call logs, pharmacy notes, lunch break emails, and questions nobody photographed. Diane lowered her voice. Avery, I don't know everything happening in your family, but people do not ask those questions unless they are afraid to lose someone. I thanked her because anything more would have cracked open in the lobby. After the call, I printed the emails and added them to my folder. The money belonged at the front. Behind it, I placed proof that my love had not been late. It had only been invisible to people who preferred Grant's pictures. By noon, Dad left a voicemail telling me to come home and fix what I started. I deleted nothing. I saved everything. Attorney Elena Vasquez did not have the soft voice people expect from women who help families fall apart. Her office sat on the 12th floor of a midtown building, all glass and quiet confidence. She wore a charcoal suit, no jewelry except a watch, and listened while I laid 3 years of my family on her conference table. Bank records, care summaries, pharmacy notes, Diane's emails, Grant's texts, Heather's voicemail. When I finished, Elena did not gasp. She slid on reading glasses and began sorting. That helps, she said. I almost laughed. My family was bleeding across her table, and to her, it helped. Maybe that was why I trusted her. I'm not trying to send my brother to prison, I said. I need to protect my mother. And know how far this goes? Elena said. We can pursue both without confusing them. She built a timeline cleaner than grief ever could. Money in, claimed purpose, verified service, missing documentation. Then she paused over one email from Grant. Houseline is covering part of the gap, but Mom's care is still running high. Can you send another $3,200 before Friday? Elena tapped the words with her pen. Houseline? I thought he meant some household account. Maybe. Or he meant a home equity line of credit. The room seemed to tilt by 1 inch. A HELOC? I asked. A credit line secured by your parents' home. I knew what that meant. I had seen elderly clients lose stability because one adult child called debt a bridge. To my parents, a home was retirement, memory, and proof that life had held together. Elena pulled public property records while I sat across from her, hands folded tight. There it is, she said. 8 months earlier, a home equity line of credit had been opened against my parents' house in Greenville. The borrower of record included Dad. The file referenced medical and home care expenses. There was also a financial power of attorney document connected to Mom. Mom had signed it during the season when she was still recovering, still mixing up appointment times, still asking the same question twice after medication changes. Elena raised the hand before I could speak. We are not going to assume incapacity without proof. But timing matters. Purpose matters. Use of funds matters. Grant told Dad it was for Mom. That may be what your father believed. The bank will care what was represented, who authorized it, and where the money went. I thought of Dad lifting his glass at Thanksgiving. Some people understand that family means showing up. Grant had shown up all right. He had shown up at a bank with my mother's illness in his pocket. Elena listed the next steps: written requests, account review, no phone fights, no emotional agreements, no more money through Grant. Then she looked at me over her glasses. Miss Caldwell, family pressure can sound gentle. On paper, it can become a weapon. Outside her window, Atlanta traffic moved like nothing had changed. Inside that room, I understood the first rule of surviving a family lie. Stop treating it like a misunderstanding once it starts borrowing against your mother's roof. Elena found it because she did not trust patterns that looked too neat. Late that afternoon, while rain ticked against the glass, she set 2 printed pages in front of me. One was a message from Grant in March. The other was tied to a loan extension for Caldwell Custom Renovations. At first, I saw only legal language. Then, Elena tapped a highlighted line. Backup guarantor, Avery Lynn Caldwell. My eyes moved down the page and stopped on the signature. Avery L. Caldwell. Scripted. False. I didn't sign that, I said. Elena's face did not change. Then we prove it in the language banks understand. The loan was not for Mom's care. Not for medication, a bathroom rail, a caregiver, or a ride to therapy. It was for Grant's company, his debt, his failing business wearing my name like borrowed clothing. The file used an old address, a phone number I no longer had, and enough correct personal information to make my skin go cold. Details pulled from family forms I had filled out years earlier. Then Elena pointed to the email used for signature confirmation. It looked almost like mine. Almost. 1 extra period. 1 letter changed in the middle. Close enough for someone careless. Wrong enough for someone guilty. I never made that email, I said. I know, Elena answered. But someone wanted it to look like you might have. I thought of Grant at Thanksgiving, saying I did not understand family because I lived alone. He had said that while my name sat inside a loan file, he had no right to touch. Elena slid a checklist across the table. Freeze your credit. Place a fraud alert. I'll send a written dispute and request the e-sign certificate, timestamp, IP information, verification trail, and any consent record they claim supports your signature. I nodded because my voice did not feel steady. And Avery, she added, no direct calls with Grant. He's my brother, I said. Elena looked at the forged page. He used that title to get close enough. That sentence landed harder than law. I signed the authorization for Elena to contact the lender. The signature was mine, but my hand shook. By the time I reached my apartment, Atlanta had gone dark. I opened the credit freeze pages one by one. Passwords, security questions, confirmation numbers, screenshots saved into a folder. I named the folder Fraud. Not misunderstanding, not family mess, not Grant being overwhelmed. Fraud. At 11:57 p.m., Elena emailed the first dispute. It stated that I had not authorized, reviewed, consented to, or signed any guarantor agreement for Caldwell Custom Renovations. It requested that the lender suspend any reliance on my name during review. Then I saw my reflection in the black window above the sink. Same tired face my family called absent. Only now my absence had been useful to Grant. If no one believed I showed up, he could pretend I had signed from a distance, too. I placed the forged document beside the Thanksgiving folder. The moment my name appeared on a loan I never signed, this stopped being a family misunderstanding. It became a line. And Grant had crossed it in ink that was not his to borrow. My phone rang at 12:14 a.m. Unknown number. I was in my kitchen with the forged guarantor page on the counter. The apartment was dark except for the light above the sink. Outside, Atlanta rain slid down the window. I almost let it go. Then something in me knew. Hello? For 1 second, there was only breathing. What did you do? Grant asked. Not hello, not Avery, not sorry. Just that. I looked at the signature again. My name, written by someone who needed me useful and silent. I stopped letting you use my name. He gave a sharp laugh, but it cracked. You have no idea what you're messing with. The lender seems to think I'm involved. You were involved. This whole family was involved. You don't get to act innocent now. I sent money for Mom's care. I did not guarantee your business debt. It was temporary. So was stealing from Mom. Silence hit the line so hard, I heard him swallow. Then came the Grant I knew from childhood, the one who could break a window and somehow make Dad ask why I had upset him. You keep this up, Dad will never forgive you. He hasn't forgiven me for leaving Greenville. That didn't start tonight. You think you're so clean, he snapped. You gotta run off to Atlanta. I stayed. I took the cause. I handled panic. I was the one they needed. And somehow that required an email almost identical to mine? You don't understand pressure. I understand fraud. And that word changed him. Avery, he said, softer now. The company just needs a few months. I have 2 contracts coming. I can fix this before anybody gets hurt. Anybody already got hurt. You forged my signature, Grant. I used what I had to use to keep things from collapsing. There it was. Not remorse. Just a man admitting the roof was falling and calling my name a beam. He changed tactics again. Mom can't handle this. You saw her at dinner. You want her back in the hospital? Don't put your choices inside her chest. She's fragile. She was fragile when you used her illness to open a house line. He cursed under his breath. Not loud enough to quote. Loud enough to prove the mask was slipping. Then he reached for the last shield. Mason and Lily could lose their home because of you. My throat tightened. He knew I loved those kids. Lily still mailed me crayon drawings. Mason once asked why I lived where the buildings touched the sky. But love for children cannot become a ransom note. You should have thought about them before you put my name on a loan. For a moment, he said nothing. Then his voice went low. You always wanted to make me look bad. No, Grant. I wanted you to stop making me pay for looking good. I ended the call before he could pull me into another circle. By morning, the family group chat was full. Grant wrote that I was trying to seize Mom and Dad's house, punish him over old jealousy, and twist paperwork because I hated not being needed. Aunt Carol sent praying hands. A cousin asked if this was true. Heather wrote nothing. Dad called at 8:03. Drop this now, he said. Did you read the file? I don't need a file to know my son. That's exactly how he got this far. The line went quiet. For once, I did not feel it. Mom told me later she read the first page twice. Then she put the packet down. Then she picked it back up because the number would not change. I was not in the house to see it, but I knew that dining room well enough to imagine her sitting under the soft yellow light, Thanksgiving dishes still stacked in the kitchen, the smell of cinnamon burned down to smoke. Dad would have been pacing. Grant would have been talking. He always talked fastest when silence threatened him. Mom had spent years letting his voice become the railing she held. That night, for the first time, paper asked her to stand without it. She started with the caregiver summary. 11 hours, 13 hours, 12 hours. Dates lined up beside Grant's claims of 38 and 40. She moved to the emails Diane had resent. There was my name, again and again, asking if dizziness had improved, whether Mom was eating enough protein, whether the new medication should be taken with food. Mom remembered pieces. A white bag of low-sodium meals on the porch after her cardiologist warned her about salt. She had thought Grant arranged it. He had smiled when she thanked him. A shower chair delivered after she cried because she was afraid of falling again. Grant had said, "Avery worries too much." Then install the grab bar while Dad watched. A pharmacy refill that arrived before she even knew she was close to running out. My love had been in the room. It just had Grant's shadow standing in front of it. By mid-morning, Mom called Diane Mercer herself. Diane later told me Mom sounded embarrassed before she sounded angry. "Mrs. Caldwell," Diane said gently, "your daughter was not absent. She was quiet." Mom did not answer right away. Diane continued, careful as always. "Avery asked the questions people ask when they are afraid to lose someone." That was the sentence that broke something open. Not because it was dramatic, because it was plain. Dad did not want plain. Plain left him nowhere to hide. When Mom told him what Diane said, he rubbed his forehead and muttered. Grant was under pressure. Mom looked at him across the kitchen. "So was Avery." Dad frowned, as if he had not considered that suffering could happen 3 hours away. "He was here," he said, "and she was helping." Mom answered. Her voice shook, but she did not take it back. That was new. For most of my life, Mom softened Dad's edges before they cut anyone important. That day, she let the edge show. Dad tried again. His heart was in the right place. Mom placed one of my printed emails on the counter. "If his heart was in the right place, Tom, why did he let me thank him for things she did?" Dad had no answer that did not accuse himself. Later, she told me she sat alone in the den with the packet spread across her lap. She cried over the bank total, yes, but money was not what hurt her most. It was the memory of my calls, the way she had shortened them because Grant was at the door, the way she had said, "Your brother has it handled," when I asked too many questions. She had not only believed a lie, she had helped protect it because it made her feel less abandoned. That afternoon, she dialed my number. I watched her name glow on my phone for 3 rings before I answered. "Hi, Mom." All I heard at first was breathing. Then she said, "Avery, I read every page." I sat down slowly. She tried to keep her voice steady and failed. "I let your brother tell me who loved me. There are apologies that ask you to hurry up and forgive. This was not one of them. This one stood in the doorway with empty hands. I closed my eyes. "Mom, I don't know how to fix what I let happen," she whispered. For once, she did not ask me to think of Dad. She did not ask me to be gentle with Grant. She did not ask me to keep the family together. So I told her the only truth I had left. You can start by not looking away again. She cried harder then, and I let her. Elena Vasquez chose a small law office 2 blocks from Main Street. Frosted glass, coffee nobody touched. Mom sat beside Dad, hands around a paper cup. Dad looked smaller than he had on Thanksgiving, but not softer. Grant arrived 10 minutes late with Heather behind him. Heather's eyes were red. She did not say hello. Elena placed a folder in front of each of us. "This is a review meeting," she said. "We are reviewing records, authorization, and financial exposure." Grant smiled. "Sounds warm." "Warmth is not the purpose of documentation." She began with the care funds. I had transferred $129,700 over 3 years. Verified expenses tied to mom's care came to about $61,300. The unsupported amount sat there in black ink. $68,400. Grant leaned forward. Some of that was reimbursement. Gas, time, supplies. Elena slid another page across the table. Several transfers were followed by payments into or out of Caldwell Custom Renovations. If these were reimbursements for care, we need care-related invoices. Heather stared at her ringed. Dad finally spoke. He was trying to keep everything running. Elena turned to him. Intentions do not replace authorization. Grant's voice tightened. I kept this family from falling apart. No, I said. You kept your image from falling apart and sent me the bill. Elena opened the last section of her folder. There's also a proposed amendment to the Caldwell Family Trust. Dad's face changed before mine did. Grant would receive a priority option to purchase or receive through adjusted distribution the Greenville residence after my parents' deaths, based on his role as primary caregiver. Then Elena read the supporting line. Avery Lynn Caldwell failed to provide meaningful care during Marjorie Caldwell's recovery. For a moment, I did not understand English. Failed to provide meaningful care. Not absent from a dinner, not distant in an argument. Written, formal. A lie dressed for notarization. I looked at Dad. Did you read that? He rubbed his thumb over his knuckle. Grant said it was just wording. Just wording, I repeated. Mom whispered, Tom. I kept my eyes on my father. Did you ever ask me what I paid for before you let him write that sentence? Dad opened his mouth, then closed it. Grant cut in. It was never final. But it was true enough for you to type, I said. He slapped his palm on the table. I was the one here. I leaned forward. You were here, Grant. And somehow, I was still the one paying for care that did not happen. Meals you took credit for, and a trust clause that tried to turn your lie into inheritance. Heather began to cry. I looked at her. Did you know? She wiped her cheek. Not all of it, but enough to stay quiet. She did not deny it. Elena closed the trust copy. No amendment involving care-based preference should proceed until records are reviewed. Any language alleging failure of care is disputed and unsupported by the documents produced so far. Dad stared at the table. The cruelest lies are the ones people are willing to notarize. Grant had not only stolen money, he had tried to write me out of the family in permanent ink. The conference call began at 9 o'clock sharp. Elena sat beside me in a small meeting room at the Greenville Bank branch. Dad and Mom were across the table. Grant sat near the window, jaw tight, phone face down like it had betrayed him. Heather had not come. Maybe she was tired of watching the truth take attendance. On the screen was a bank officer named Mr. Randall Price. Gray hair, blue tie. No expression wasted. We are here to review concerns related to the home equity line of credit and the business loan extension connected to Caldwell Custom Renovations, he said. Grant shifted. Concerns raised by my sister. Elena looked up. Concerns supported by documents. Mr. Price continued as if Grant had not spoken. Pending review, additional draws from the HELOC and the business extension have been temporarily suspended. For 1 second, Grant stopped breathing. That was when I understood. The next draw was not future money to him. It was oxygen. Dad noticed too. His eyes moved from the screen to Grant, slow and uncertain. Grant leaned forward. You can't just freeze a family account because she's upset. It is not frozen, Mr. Price said. It is under temporary hold pending verification. The correction was calm and somehow worse. Elena opened her folder. We have submitted a written dispute regarding Miss Avery Caldwell's alleged guarantor signature. Mr. Price nodded. We have requested the e-sign certificate, timestamp, delivery address, device information where available, and verification trail. Grant's knee started bouncing under the table. The officer turned to him. Mr. Caldwell, the guarantor document appears to have been completed through an email address similar to Miss Caldwell's known address, but not identical. Grant cleared his throat. Avery gave me permission to handle family emergency paperwork. I did not raise my voice. I gave you permission to coordinate Mom's care, not to borrow against my name. Mom closed her eyes. Grant snapped. You knew we were all trying to keep things going. No, I said. I knew Mom needed help. You knew your company needed money. Mr. Price moved to the next page. There's also the matter of the financial power of attorney used in relation to Mrs. Marjorie Caldwell. Dad sat straighter. My wife signed what she was asked to sign. Mom's hand trembled around her tissue. Elena spoke before Dad could make it worse. We are not asserting incapacity in this meeting. We are requesting review due to timing, medical recovery, and possible misrepresentation of purpose. Mr. Price said, we have received a statement from Nurse Diane Mercer indicating Mrs. Caldwell was, during that period, still recovering, and at times required repeated explanations of care instructions. Grant laughed once, bitter and thin. So now everyone's saying Mom didn't know what she was doing? Mom opened her eyes. No, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it reached every corner of the room. They're asking whether you knew exactly what you were doing. Grant looked at her as if she had slapped him. Dad turned toward his son. The old shield rose in his face, then faltered. Grant, he said low, tell me this isn't what it looks like. Grant's mouth tightened. For years, that sentence would have saved him. Dad wanted denial so badly he would have helped build it. But the bank did not run on Dad's need to believe. Grant stood, then sat again. You all have no idea what it's like, he said. Avery got to leave. She got Atlanta, her career, her clean little apartment. I stayed. I got the calls. I got Dad panicking. I got Mom crying. I got everyone needing something. There it was. Not apology. Indictment. I had to fix things, he said. I looked at my brother, and for one strange second, I saw the boy who had once been praised so much he never learned the difference between duty and ownership. Staying cost you something, I said. It did not give you permission to steal. His face went red. Mr. Price spoke again, almost gently. Until the review is complete, no further disbursements will be approved from the accounts in question. Grant stared at the screen. Dad stared at Grant. Mom stared at the table, crying without making a sound. I did not feel victorious. Victory would have been Mom never needing that folder. Victory would have been my name never appearing on a loan. Victory would have been my father reading before judging. But there are smaller victories in this world. A hold placed before more money disappears. A lie forced to answer in writing. A daughter no longer asking permission to defend her own name. Grant pushed back from the table and walked out without looking at any of us. This time, Dad did not follow him. The bank did not put Grant in handcuffs. Real life moved slower. It moved through certified letters, suspended draws, and calls he could not charm. The HELOC stayed under hold. The business loan extension stayed under fraud review. Elena filed a civil demand for the money Grant could not document. Grant agreed to repay the unsupported care funds. My credit stayed frozen, and the lender kept reviewing the e-sign trail. My name was no longer available for him to borrow. Mom removed Grant from her care payments. A neutral fiduciary took over billing and caregiver schedules. I still helped, but every dollar went straight to a provider. No, just trust me. Trust was not a substitute for records. Heather took Mason and Lily to her mother's house outside Spartanburg. I saw her once after a meeting. "I thought you had enough money that it wouldn't hurt you," she said. "That's what people say when they want theft to sound like need." She cried. I did not comfort her. Heather had not forged anything, but silence had been her signature. Mom called 2 nights later. "I read every page again," she said. "I'm not asking you to make this easier for me." Her voice broke. "I let your brother tell me who loved me. I should have known my own daughter's hands." "Well, you can know them now," I said. Dad took longer. For 12 days, he said nothing. Then he asked me to meet him at Miller's Diner. I drove myself, parked where I could leave easily, and sat facing the door. Dad noticed. "I deserve that." "I thought Grant stayed because he loved us more," he said. "No, Dad. You thought I left because I loved you less." And I was wrong. I wanted those words to fix more than they could. So I gave him terms. He would not call this a misunderstanding. He would not ask me to forgive Grant so holidays could look normal. He would not use Mom's health to rush my heart. And he would not say I was not there unless he had the courage to read what being there cost me. Dad nodded at each one. "Will you forgive me?" he asked. "I'm willing to see who you become after you stop needing to be right." By spring, Mom's house felt quieter, not healed, honest. There is a difference. One Sunday evening, I came for dinner. No relatives, no Facebook photo, no speeches. Diane stopped by with a lemon pound cake, hugged Mom, and left before anyone could turn gratitude into performance. Dad set a plate in front of me, awkward as a man learning a new language. "I'm glad you came," he said. For once, it sounded like thanks. I still kept my car keys in my pocket, my bank account separate, Elena's number saved, and my boundaries close enough to touch. I loved my family, but I no longer confused love with shrinking. The lesson is simple. Family should never require you to erase the truth to keep the table peaceful. If this story moved you, please leave a like for the channel and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you are listening from and what advice you would give to someone like Avery. Thank you for staying until the end. Wishing you health, peace, and strength. See you again in the next story on Revenge Glow.